Hello, I'm Dan Gibson and welcome to another video about archaeology in Islam. This is a very short video just to answer a question that came in recently from one of our viewers who was trying to duplicate the research that we did and measuring of mosques. And this particular viewer lives in the Middle East, and he took his cell phone with him and went out to an old mosque and tried to figure out how to use your cell phone to measure the mosque Qibla, and he was having some problems doing that. And his question was, what app do you use? And the answer is, be very careful which app you use, because not all apps are made equal. In fact, there are very few apps that you can use to actually measure using the stars and using a GPS. Many phones have a GPS unit in them, but most app writers use a shortcut. Rather than actually using the GPS unit in the phone, which is a lot more difficult, what they do is they just use the compass in the phone. Now, in your phone is a compass, and it will give you a compass reading based on a magnetic reading, not a GPS coordinates. If you're going to use GPS coordinates, the phone has got to be able to pick up at least 3 satellites and be able to find your position from those satellites. How well it can do that depends on the version of the equipment that you're using. Back when I first started, I used a Garmin, that's G-A-R-M-I-N, a Garmin E-Trax, and that was quite good. It would give us accuracy. It could tell where we were from from satellites that are up there, and it could nail us down here with our GPS coordinate within probably 12 feet, like 3 or 4 meters. But there's a problem. Knowing where you stand is one thing. Knowing the direction you're facing is another. So back in the early days, we needed to use waypoints. A waypoint means that you go to the corner, usually if a mosque is square, and I'll just use a book here, you would go, and if you're trying to measure this Qibla, you go up to one corner, set a waypoint, and then go across to the other point, set a waypoint, and now it gives you a line across, and it can tell you which direction that line is facing. And if it's a small mosque, you might want to take a rope with you and run the waypoint much farther out, so you're over here, and get that waypoint nailed down. Then you measure, get that direction at 90 degrees, and then you know which direction you're facing this way. Please do not use the side walls of the building, because they were not ever measured to be square. Westerners always think in terms of things have got to be square, but that is something that we assume from our Western, maybe German background, where we think things all have to be square and level and all this stuff. In the Middle East, especially early on, not everything was square. There was no need to make sure things were square. All the builders of mosques were interested in was that Qibla wall, and what direction were you facing when you faced it. So don't use a cell phone. I suggest don't do that unless you know that your cell phone is actually using GPS coordinates. And if it is, it should be able to tell you which actual satellites those coordinates are being taken from. That's the nice thing about a Garmin unit. You can go on the internet and look at the various units they have to offer. When you go out there, it will say calculating, and then it will tell you which satellites that you're bouncing the signal off of. You need at least 3 so that it can accurately triangulate where you are and come up with that GPS location. And then when you move to another location, you do that as well. So please make sure you're using an actual GPS unit and not just something that's based on a magnetic compass, because your readings will be inaccurate. And so that's just a warning to all of you who want to go out and double check those. So often when I was out, I would use a GPS unit, I would use a cell phone to check against that, and then we'd go back and look at satellite imagery and check those. There's various different satellite systems out there. You can check them all and try to come up with how accurate you are when you measure these mosques. So if you find just a curved rock lying in the middle of nowhere and the wall attached to it, as I have found in multiple cases where a mihrab stone has managed to survive but not the wall, that is very difficult to measure. You can go back and you can measure, but there's no saying if that rock is in the correct position that it was when the building existed. It may have been moved, and this is why even when measuring the Qibla rocks, for instance, in Aqaba at the mosque, those rocks had tumbled down over time and over history, and then the people working on them restored them back into a wall, but they're not where they originally were. There's no guarantee that that is where they originally were. So there are lots of problems, and you need to be aware of those when you're looking at old ancient buildings and trying to figure out if this was a place of prayer and then what direction people faced when they prayed there. Thank you. This has been another video on archaeology and Islam.